could train all day, every day if I had to. But competing, like, that is something completely different than going to the gym.
What do you think, looking back, some of the biggest surprises were when you went through the first prep?
I knew that I would get hungry. I knew that I would get cranky and all the expected things, but I didn't realize just how hard it would be.
How did that show go?
I got first. Yeah, I did pretty good. It's hard to quantify it, I guess, but like you can't have any expectations going into it. You should want to win and try to win, but it really just depends on who shows up that day and what the judges think.
What was the post-show period like?
Pretty rough, because I went into it not really understanding the post-show period. Like, I did all the research I could into doing the prep properly, but none of it really prepared me for the aftermath.
What's going on, everyone? In today's episode, I'm excited to be joined by Jean-Yves Mageau, a natural bodybuilder who's incredibly passionate about lifting weights and building muscle. This conversation was a good one. Jean-Yves shares his super honest natural bodybuilding prep and competition experiences, and not just the positive parts, also the negative, darker ones that are often not talked about or overlooked by many spectators of the sport or even prospective natural bodybuilding athletes who have yet to compete for the first time. As you'll hear from Jean-Yves, natural bodybuilding is an extreme sport, and with it can come some extreme challenges. You're in for a treat with this episode. So, without further ado, let's get into it. You and I, we first met at the 2023 WMBF Ontario. It was like September 9th or something like that. I think that was the day, September 9th.
That's about right, yeah.
And it's been getting close to 2 years since then. How's life been since the competition?
Better than prep. Much better than prep. Uh, I got married, bought a house, moved, so a lot of like interesting life transitions. Everything positive, pretty much. The bounce back from the show itself was pretty good. I had competed prior, so I had a much better kind of knowledge base of what to expect coming out of it. Because if you haven't prepped yet, if you're somebody that's never done that, hopefully you either have a good coach or have done your research or something like that, because you don't really know what's going to happen after when you go from what you think is looking your best to all of a sudden going back towards like healthy body fat percentage. But I'm fairly fortunate. I'm not too hard on myself and how I look, which is odd for a bodybuilder because it's kind of what we do. But at the same time, I can kind of separate that, and I don't think I had a hard time like bouncing back from the show this time, more so than the first time I competed back in 2018. I just, yeah, the knowledge of knowing what to expect and how I'm going to react and how quickly you can and kind of should gain weight after your show, just kind of had me in a good headspace to bounce back. So everything's been good. Training's been good. It probably took me, I'd say, about like 6 to 8 weeks to get my energy back to like a low but still normal-ish range. By then I had probably gained about 10 pounds. And then training started getting fun again, because even after my show, like I'd say about 6 weeks prior to the show and 6 weeks after the show, training wasn't fun at all anymore. It was just dragging my feet and doing it because it's just life and it's what I enjoy doing, even though at the moment I was not. Um, and then yeah, things just started rolling again. I started making progress again, and all the natural kind of feedback mechanisms started coming back because I was getting healthy again. So yeah,
Yeah.
everything was good after a little bit, which is exactly what I expected.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can definitely relate to that too. I know it's like you get to the weeks leading up to the show, and for me, I always get to a point where it's like I just barely got to hang on. I feel
Yeah,
like I'm just barely hanging on, trying to maintain my strength as best as I can, and it becomes a little bit less about like enjoying the act of lifting weights and more about like surviving the training sessions at a
yeah,
certain point. And
yeah,
then I definitely get what you mean about the period after as well, where for me it's always been like the first 6 weeks or more, it's like gaining back body fat and just kind of getting back to the regular strength levels. So it doesn't feel like a ton of progress is being made. It's more of just getting back to a baseline. So it's a little bit less exciting in that sense too. But I want to talk more about that period between when your prep or when that prep ended, when the competition ended, how you felt about the competition, and also what your lifting goals are from this point onwards. But before we talk more about that, I'm wondering how you first got into lifting weights. How old were you? Why did you start?
That's good. Yeah, yeah. I guess the best way to kind of explain it is I grew up playing like most sports, like most people, I guess when you're young, you just kind of dabble in whatever sports your buddies are playing. I went to a really small elementary school, so we basically only had enough guys to form a team of anything. So by default, I kind of had to do the sports because if not, I'd be the only kid not doing it. And it also made me realize how much I didn't like team sports. There was just something about, I don't know if it's necessarily relying on other people for success, but maybe more so being on somebody else's schedule that I just didn't agree with. My inner stubbornness was just like, no, I want to do it my way on my schedule, which is just not how it works in life. So I kind of just shied away from team sports once I got to high school. I played a year of football, but that was pretty much it. And I grew up with a father figure that was into fitness a little bit during, I believe, his 20s. He was, I wouldn't call him a bodybuilder, but he definitely trained and had a good amount of muscle mass for somebody that didn't like just try to do that. He was just pretty fit, pretty healthy. And so I kind of looked up to him in that regard. And we also used to watch like a lot of strongman competitions on TV and all that stuff. So I just kind of got interested in like what is this lifting weights thing and what can it do for me? Um, so I believe it started where I just asked my dad, like, "Hey, can you make me a little workout program or something like that?" And he put together on a piece of paper, which to this day is one of my biggest regrets that I don't still have that piece of paper because I think that would be the coolest thing to just frame and like put in my home gym or something like that. My first program that my dad hand wrote. But he wrote me like a very basic like I guess it'd be somewhat push pull legs split or like bro split maybe even. I don't fully remember it. Um, and he had bought one of those wider, whatever, all-in-one machines, which by today's standards are awful. Like they're garbage machines, but we had it at home. So for about a year and a half, I purely trained out of my parents' like little rec room, which had just this little all-in-one machine, and I had dumbbells that went. They were two and a halves, five and tens, which doesn't do much these days, but it was a start. And my dad had hoarded a pile, a big stack in the garage attic of 80s bodybuilding magazines. So I just devoured them all at the same time. So I was in a weird period of like I went through puberty not long ago. I'm not really finding my place in the world and not really finding activities that I'm enjoying doing with others. So I kind of just gravitated to something that I could do for myself, which with the magazines and the fitness equipment, I just kind of fell in love with training the first time I got a pump. I was like, this is one of the coolest feelings in the world. It's just like I feel like I'm doing something positive. I'm burning energy, I'm moving, I'm getting stronger. I feel better about myself because I'm doing something like positive. Um, and that just kind of snowballed. After about a year of training at home, my I think my parents bought me a bench that can incline and decline, and I bought myself one of those old Bowflex adjustable dumbbells that went up to like 50 pounds. So I just played with that every single day, blaring music in the rec room, just doing my thing, and fell in love with just training and putting myself in a weird like tunnel vision mindset where I was just going at it. And I had a few buddies that kind of would join me from time to time and we do it that way. But for the most part, it was just putting my head down, getting to work, and really, really enjoying the benefits. And after that year and a half or so, I joined a really small community center that we have or had in the old town I used to live in, and trained there for 5 or 6 years until I started training at bigger gyms in different areas. But that's basically how I got my start. I just didn't find my place in sports, but I needed some sort of physical outlet. I'm somebody that's got probably too much energy if I don't train or do something physical. So I just needed some sort of hard thing to beat my head against the wall and just get results and success out of. So that's how I fell into training, I guess, not necessarily bodybuilding. Um, I was more interested in getting strong probably in the beginning. There was just something about doing better than my last workout, which gravitated me towards improving my lifts instead of maybe my technique, which as a young trainee is pretty standard. You tend to train with not great form, but you just want to do more than last time. So I had that mentality for long enough to create some injuries until I had to train a little bit smarter, do some more reading, do some more research and stuff like that. So yeah, eventually I started realizing that my physique looked better than it was strong, at least in my opinion. So I started gravitating more towards the bodybuilding side rather than just getting strong. It just made more sense for what I like to. I didn't like the style of training of powerlifting or like power building, if you will. I just liked more bodybuilding style training, more reps, a little bit harder, I guess, in a way, because you're just doing more. Yeah.
Something I'm curious about is I'm wondering, what do you think the reason is that you ended up like really falling in with lifting weights in opposed to finding something else, like just getting like super into video games or reading or history or I don't know, some other kind of art, like playing a musical instrument? You mentioned that like you played sports basically out of necessity, but it wasn't your thing. You're trying to find your place in the world, trying to find an interest. Your dad, it sounds like, was an inspiration in all of this too. You ended up getting started with lifting from home, and you had an interest in getting stronger and then shifting to like the aesthetics, the bodybuilding element. But what do you think the reason is that you like and or you've stuck with sticking weights and you stayed consistent, especially in the early stages? And one of the reasons I'm asking this is because I know for a lot of people, at least a lot of people that I know, they kind of have to force themselves to go to the gym and lift weights because it's uncomfortable, like lifting weights to get stronger and build muscle. Like it kind of hurts when you get to the end of the set. This is kind of unavoidable. So I think that when a lot of people stick with it, it's almost like counterintuitive because it's like a almost like an uncomfortable, painful activity versus something that's enjoyable or quote unquote enjoyable, like reading a book or playing a musical instrument or something like that. So, what do you think is the reason that you've really stuck with lifting weights, especially in the beginning, considering those different variables?
I think that I I wouldn't say I'm an angry person, but I would definitely say that I have a lot of energy that needs to go somewhere. And through that like early high school transition, I just felt like I don't know if I would call it anxiety, but there's just like this feeling of needing to burn off energy, I guess, and needing to do something physical to really have like an outlet to pour energy into. And I fell in love with training. I don't know what it was about it. I think it was the feeling that 100% of what I get out of this is what I personally put into it. Obviously, genetics play a pretty big role in it, but no matter how good or bad your genetics are, you'll only get the results that you put in yourself. So there was something about that aspect of it, I think, that made it very attractive. Also, that I could do it on my own schedule. I could make it fit my life at the time, which wasn't crazy hectic being like in high school or whatever, but it still made more sense for me. I did get a bit of inspiration from YouTube and stuff, like bodybuilding stuff on YouTube was kind of just starting then. There was no good information really, but there was a lot of like videos that I would just consume like nonstop before going to the gym, like old school Ronnie Coleman videos and stuff. Like there's just something about it that just got me amped up. It's so primal. It's like I don't know what it is, but I feel that everybody should have some sort of outlet on their life, sports or whatever physical, that is really, really hard. Whether it's painful in a good way or not isn't super relevant. But I think I enjoy that aspect. There's something about chasing that pain towards the end of a hard set that is, for some reason, like my inner masochist just loves it. And it's like a feedback mechanism that it's like, if it feels hard, it is hard. If it is hard, I will get better within the constraints, obviously, of good nutrition, good sleep, and all that.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's almost like the discomfort and the pain of getting through like a hard workout is a big part of like what makes it more rewarding and what makes it worth doing. I can relate to a lot of that, as well as like having some kind of an outlet to put your energy, um, and also the rewarding element to it. But that's awesome. When did you? So you mentioned you got an interest in like getting stronger for a while, or at least a focus on that, and then
yeah.
it kind of shifted over to more of the focus being on like the bodybuilding, the aesthetic element of lifting weights. When did you start to consider something like competing in natural bodybuilding?
So I started training like for real, like with intensity and effort when I was around 15 or 16. I'm 32 now, so this was like 17 years ago almost. Um, I think I got the want to compete 8, maybe 7 or 8 years into training. So I was probably around 23, give or take. Um, I don't really know why. I remember kind of looking into natural bodybuilding for the first time. I didn't even really know it existed. I just thought it was what I saw on, at the time, there wasn't that much in social media, maybe compared to now. But I we used to watch the Olympia. I used to, watch strongman competitions. And I'm like, I'm just this 5'8", 170-pound guy. Like, why would I even try against these giants and monsters? It just didn't make any sense. So once I discovered natural bodybuilding and started looking into it, I was like, oh, like this is, somewhere where I think, not necessarily that I have a chance to win. I don't know if that's the mindset I had, but at least somewhere that I feel that I belong. Because competing against enhanced people, like for me, why? Like, why would I waste my time doing that? I don't have anything to prove in that sense. It's just I'd rather compete on a level playing field. So I found a few natural bodybuilders that like I kind of enjoyed following their content, and their physiques were felt attainable for me, or something that I could stand against on stage and not look out of place. So it's like, oh, maybe I do have, a stage somewhere that I could try to compete on. And I was at a really good place in my life. I had just met my now wife. So I was happy in a good new fresh relationship. So it was just kind of a lot of momentum in my life in the right direction. So it made sense that, like, hey, I want to try something harder than just going to the gym and training, because that part is easy. It's fun. It's what I love. Training is nothing. I could train all day, every day if I had to. But competing, like, that is something completely different than going to the gym. If you enjoy training in the gym, you might hate competing because it's a completely different sport, completely different thing. Um, and yeah, I think I wanted a real challenge that went beyond just day-to-day workouts. So that's what made me want to try it for the first time.
What do you think it was that kept you on the natural route? The reason I ask that is because I think a lot of people, after they've lifted for a certain period of time, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, they've made a lot of progress naturally. Then they decide they want to compete. But instead of like the decision that you made, like, hey, I don't want to go and compete against the enhanced guys. I'm starting to, I found this natural bodybuilding thing, like that suits me best. I want to continue on this route. A lot of people would have gone the other route. It's like, okay, I've accomplished my natural gains. Now I'm going to go down the other route and I'm going to compete with the natural or the enhanced guys. I think that's relatively common. So, what do you think it was that kept you on the path to staying natural and working towards eventually doing a natural bodybuilding competition instead of the alternative?
Yeah, number one for me would always be health. Like that's just the standout giveaway for me. I'm kind of fortunate in a sense that I don't think that many people, especially young male, going through puberty, whatever, we tend to not have that much foresight on the future and what that means. But I've always kind of had that ingrained with me. I don't even think it was taught. I think it was just something that I've had innately, that I've always looked ahead as like, how is my life going to look in 5, 10, 20, 50 years? And even as a young teen, I was like, sure, I could do this thing that makes me potentially look better, if you will, be stronger, maybe get success in life through that avenue if I was to compete or get some sort of sponsorships or whatever. And that thought's always in the back of your head a little bit, but I also cared about longevity and just like aging gracefully and normally to some extent. I didn't want to accelerate my life for these short-sighted potential like shot in the dark goals. So that's definitely the main reason. But as a secondary, there may be more reasons I can't think of, but the next one that really stands out is having probably too much pride in the fact that the results come purely from me. Um, I would rather know that my results came out of my hard work and my effort rather than how well my body responded to high quality drugs. Like, sure, it might be nice to know that you have a lot of androgen receptors or something like that, or that you got good quality, test off of someone. But just the idea of doing that, injecting myself or taking pills or just putting my body through a trial in a sense, it felt misguided. It didn't seem attractive to me at all. Not to mention that despite looking up to like Mr. Olympia type guys for my whole lifting career up until now, I still don't want to look like that. There's just like, good for them that they can achieve that. It's incredible that you can do that to a human body when you compare it to a regular body. But it's just never a goal that I had in mind. I always thought that the smaller, more aesthetic, if you will, kind of upper limit of naturals was my goal. Like the Steve Reeves era of like the 50s, I think he was like that old school bodybuilding was just kind of something that I was like, if I can get that good, which clearly it's possible if, these guys before steroids probably were invented at least. It was just a more attractive thing for me.
Yeah, I really get that, and a lot of that is really relatable for my own reasons as well for picking the natural route. Some of those things, like you mentioned, not wanting to have the aesthetic of like a Kai Green or like a Phil Heath or someone like that. And it's funny, I've thought about that exact same thing. Like, what if I got that big? What would that be like? And I've had that thought experiment before where it's like maybe it'd be kind of cool to be that big for like a couple of hours, but
Yeah. Yeah.
if you did get that big, you're kind of stuck like that for as long as you decide you want to compete and continue on that route. And then even when you stop, then you're still gonna look different than everyone else probably. And be a very difficult. That would be something that wouldn't at all be worth it for me. So I definitely get that, and a lot of that really resonates.
Yeah,
Um,
like you saying that just brought something out, like just being like a social pariah in a way, like being that much of a standout person amongst society, I think itself would be difficult for me. I kind of tend to blend in and keep to myself. I'm pretty quiet when I'm out and about. I'm not one of those like loud people. I try to keep attention away from myself. It's not my personality. So I don't think being like so like big that babies and children are like, what the heck is that thing? Yeah, I think I'd have a hard time with that.
every time you
Yeah.
go to the grocery store, you're gonna have eyes
Yeah.
on you doing
Yeah, yeah.
anything. Yeah,
Yeah, for
totally. I'm
sure.
the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So okay. So you decided that at some point that, hey, this natural bodybuilding competition thing looks kind of cool.
Hmm.
When was the first prep that you did?
I think I started. So my first show was December 2018. I'm trying to think of how long I prepped for. I think I prepped for like somewhere around 16 or 18 weeks. So that's 4 months, give or take. So yeah, sometime probably summer, end of summer is when I started prepping. I've always been self-coached, so I just kind of took it on for myself. I've been like almost what's the word? Almost obsessively reading and researching kind of health, fitness, bodybuilding type stuff since I started like 16 years ago. So I felt that I had enough knowledge to give it a shot myself under my own wing, um, which in hindsight obviously could have been better with a coach. Just having that third person that's not feeling what you're feeling in the moment to make better decisions at times. But I still think that I learned the most because of how I decided to go about it myself. I did use. You obviously probably know who Lane Norton is.
Yep.
Yeah, so I followed his contest prep guide, I think it's called. So I didn't follow it like to the letter, but pretty close. Like I thought that all the information I was reading in there made way too much sense, especially when compared to what I already knew. So I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense for me to approach it this way. So if I could take photos of myself and try to pick moments where I'm feeling emotionally somewhat stable to make the judgments on whether or not to alter my prep, my calories, my steps, whatever, all the variables of prep, then I thought I would have a good shot at just manipulating those things myself. So it turned out pretty good in the end. Like I'm pretty proud of how it ended up and all that, but definitely some mistakes along the way. But that's the only way I could learn them for sure.
What do you think? What do you think? Looking back, some of the biggest surprises were when you went through the first prep. Anything like how you felt, how your body
Yeah,
changed, mental, emotional states.
yeah. I read all the things that I experienced before even starting prep, but that's a lot different than experiencing them. So I knew I would get lethargic. I knew I would get cranky. I knew just like my mannerisms would change. My personality to some extent would be like shut down. Just the way you speak, the way you move your hands when you talk, like all these little micro things that require energy from your body just dissipate more and more, especially towards like the sub like 8% body fat kind of thing. Um, so I knew that I would change. I knew that I would get hungry. I knew that I would get cranky and all the expected things, but I didn't realize just how hard it would be. Especially I'd say the last like 6 weeks probably. If I could explain it in one way, it's like I had like 30-pound weights around my ankles all the time, 24/7, with the most hunger you've ever had in your life every single minute of every day. So no, I don't think anything that you can read or whatever can prepare you for that feeling. You just have to realize that there is a healthier way of doing it, and as long as you're following those protocols, like it's okay. It'll get easier one day once you're done, and you just kind of keep plowing forward and doing the best you can to get to absurd levels of low body fat, basically.
Yeah. It's easy to just, like, look on Instagram or on social media in general and look at, like, someone's like, a photo of someone that's in prep or that's on stage and competing and just look at it and be like, "Wow, like, I want that." But
Yeah,
there's a whole story behind each of those physiques where most people have to go through exactly what you mentioned, like, a period of pretty uncomfortable and significant hunger for a good amount of time. And
yeah.
the lethargy and as I think that you articulated that really well, the feeling of having, like, ankle weights that you drag around all over the place. I can definitely relate
Mhm.
to that.
Yeah, and like no sex drive. Like your body has no extra energy to do anything. So like if you're in an intimate relationship with somebody, remind them and prepare them for the fact that they're not going to see that side of you. Even affection, just regular affection, is going to start going down towards the end. You just don't have the energy to do anything that's not survival. So
Yeah.
certain parts of yourself shut down because your body has no need for it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
if you think about it too, it's like from an evolutionary standpoint, you get lean to the point where the energy that's stored on your body becomes sparse and then it becomes like a survival matter where it's kind of like the body prioritizes survival over everything else, like relationships or socializing or all of the other things that usually light a person up. And it
Yeah.
becomes more like it's very difficult to not be cold or not just lethargic, but like to kind of shut down and be, I think cold is the best word. That's
Yeah,
what I've
yeah.
struggled with
Physically and
quite a bit of.
emotionally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you, at the time that you did this prep, were you working the same career that you're doing now, working with the
Yeah.
fire alarm systems?
Yeah, yeah. I've been doing this job for about 10 years. I think I was about 2 years, maybe 3 years into this career. So this job, I wouldn't call it physical because like I am on my feet most of the day. I also do a decent amount of driving to get to workplaces, but I wouldn't say physical because when I think of a physical job, I think of like a carpenter or like somebody that's actually like moving heavy stuff or doing a lot all day. So the job is kind of in line with like natural bodybuilding in a sense that like I have enough leftover energy at the end of my normal healthy days to go to the gym no problem and train really, really hard. But in prep towards the end, it was getting really tough to just do my job at work, which is something that you definitely have to keep in mind if you think you're going to compete in the future. You can't assume that like you're just going to be yourself and able to even do your job. If you have a physical job, you might have to reconsider prep altogether because you might not be able to fulfill the requirements of your own career. And just from a mental fog standpoint as well, if you're somebody that like analyzes things on a computer all day long, looking at data points or data entry, even like even simple stuff, you're going to be in such a brain fog type of situation towards the end of prep that at the very least you should probably warn your employers if they understand that you're willing to go through that process because it definitely will impact your work towards the end of that first prep. I got all my work done no problem, but my attitude going into it was different. It was harder to be nice with clients. Not that I wasn't kind, it just becomes harder to put on that fake front when you're really suffering and they don't understand why you're suffering. The whole process makes no sense to your average person. So they won't have sympathy or understanding for you. So you just kind of have to go through it as best as you can. But just like getting my steps in on the job was tough. Like there's some days where I would only get 5,000 steps at work in an 8-hour shift, which was easy. But some days I would get like 15 to 20,000 because I was in big warehouses where I was walking around all day. And you can't really prepare for those days until you start feeling the suck and just dragging your feet one step at a time until you get through your day.
Yeah. I think that's one of the keys to the whole prep thing isn't just, sticking with your calories, your prepared meals, doing your training sessions, but it's also maintaining a certain amount of balance with your work and relationships that you can like basically get to the other end and not just survive but hopefully do well. But the whole balancing aspect is one of the biggest challenges of the whole prep thing.
Yeah.
What were you at the time of that prep? Were you dating your now wife?
Yep. Yeah,
Did
yeah, as soon as not as soon as we started dating, but not too long after, I felt like it was a good time to try it because I had a support system that went beyond family. Because family's great and all that, but they're not with you all the time like a partner is. So, yeah.
did you if you don't mind me asking, like, was it tough from a relationship standpoint? Like, just being
Yeah,
in the prep mindset throughout the process?
for sure. Yeah, we had a couple things going for us. For one, she still lived an hour away from me at the time. So I would only see her on weekends. So she would come see me, put up with my crankiness for a couple days, and then at least get the chance to go decompress. So it was good in a sense that it put less stress on the relationship in a way, even though we were apart. Um, but yeah, and I forget what I was going to say. There was something else. Oh yeah.
Did
Oh,
you?
she's also a bodybuilder. So
That
that
helps.
helps. She had never competed yet, but at least she understood the surface selfishness that comes with like planning all your meals, getting your workouts in. Everything revolves around this prep thing while you're doing it. At least it kind of should if you really want to do it properly. With regards to balancing other things, of course, as well. But yeah, at least I had a really good support system with her because she gets it. She's trained, since she was in high school as well. So we both kind of do the same thing that way. So it's easy
That
for her to get it. Yeah.
that's awesome. Did
Yeah.
you in that prep? Did you have like a refeed system? Any higher calorie days?
Nope.
Oh
I
man,
I just done. So
that's awesome.
from I think my first starting calories were like around 3,000 a day. At the time, I think I started prep around 180, 185. I'm 5'8", give or take. So for me, that's actually pretty low. I don't. It depends obviously on your type of lifestyle, but for me, 3,000 a day is pretty low. And I think by the end of prep, my lowest day during like the beginning of peak week to just really deplete was like 2,200, something like that.
Yeah,
And then my happy calories are like 3,500. So
that's kind of where
yeah,
I'm sitting at right now. Right around
same
that.
thing. Yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah,
3,500. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
like maybe 150 more, give or take. But yeah,
yeah.
I that's tough. My first two preps were the nonstop dig, no high days, no refeeds, and then the second two I had refeeds, and it kind of helped a little bit.
Honestly, like I only gave myself like in this recent prep, I only gave myself I think one refeed, which was a week where I went back to maintenance. I still didn't do high day, low day. I like the consistent calorie goal. Like even though like there's fluctuations in my training and all that, it really it's your weekly calories and even your monthly calories if you want to go that far that matter. So for me, the same exact thing every day just was easier. I didn't want to have to think about high and low, and I think for me the mental aspect of like knowing there's a high day coming would make me maybe feel hungrier or like think ahead too much and not be too present and maybe even sleep less that night because you're getting more calories the next day, and when you're that far in prep, the idea of more food can keep you up all night, as
Oh
you
man,
know as you
I
know
get it. I get it. It's like
Yeah,
I can just imagine like people listening to this and thinking like, "Wow, they're crazy." But
yeah, yeah,
there's I think there's a lot of people that are gonna know exactly what you're talking about. I definitely
yeah.
do.
Yeah, the first like that 2018 prep, my first and only high days of the whole prep were like the Thursday of the show, which the show was the Saturday. So I was not too aggressively carbing up into the show. I was pretty moderate with it because I didn't want to like overcarb by accident. I'd rather be flatter than not. Um,
Spill.
yeah, yeah. So I think I had maybe 3,000 calories on that Thursday instead of the 2,200 I had earlier that week. And just knowing I was going from 22 to 3,000, I slept an hour and a half that night on the couch, just waiting for morning so I could pack my lunch and go to work and eat.
It's
It's
like,
insane. It's
it
insane.
when you're like 6 years old, it's the night it's like Christmas Eve and like you can't sleep all night
Yep.
because you're getting presents first thing in the morning. That's
It
what
was
it's like,
worse.
right?
It was worse than that. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I get it. I definitely get
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
I for my first two preps, the first prep I did, I had a coach and he did like a rapid backload. It wasn't exactly a rapid backload because it wasn't the day before, but I had like a ridiculous number of carbs in one day. And I think it was like middle of the week, Wednesday. So it was like a rapid
Mid
midweek
load.
backload,
Yeah.
midload. Yes.
Yeah, I guess.
And yeah, the anticipation of getting to eat all those carbs the night before. Oh
Yeah.
man. And then I did it to myself for my second prep was self-coached too, and I did it the same story, same thing happened. But yeah, I get it. Okay. So how did that show go? How did you end up doing?
I got first. Yeah, I did pretty good,
So
but
pretty
like
good.
it was a small show. Like I try not to give myself much credit because I don't think it serves me too much, like to think highly of the fact that I won. But I got first place in a novice, fairly small competition. So like I was very happy, super proud, all that. But in hindsight, like if I would have gotten fifth instead, it just would have meant that there's four other people that decided to show up that didn't. You know, it's such a weird sport that's it's hard to quantify it, I guess, but like you can't have any expectations going into it. You should want to win and try to win, but you're probably not going to win. There, it really just depends on who shows up that day and what the judges think. Like there is a standard in bodybuilding that is real, but there's also like what do they like better that day, and they're going to compare you against the people you're standing against. So if you're a smaller frame guy and everybody else there is larger frame, maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. You're going to have a standout in some way depending on your competition too. So you can mix up the guys or girls that you're competing against in different fashions over the years, and you're going to have different winners sometimes just based on who's there. So yeah, I'm happy that it went well and I won, and it kind of fueled the fact that I had a feeling I would compete again in the future just because it turned out well the first time. Yeah, so I was very happy with the show, but I was disappointed in a sense because I thought I could climb the ladder of that competition or that federation a little bit better by winning, but the win basically meant nothing in the sense that it wasn't a pro card. It was never offered at that show. You had to compete as open in that show to get a pro card, but you can only compete as open if you've previously competed as novice, which I didn't understand. It's basically just them asking for, in my opinion, like an extra paycheck to earn the
Just
right
do more
to,
shows.
yeah, like, which,
Yeah.
come on, like, if I'm good enough to get a pro card today, why, I don't like I guess, politics or whatever you want to call it of the organization that way that I competed in at the time. So yeah, I didn't enjoy that side of it, but overall, it was a good experience. I met some good people with like-minded goals and stuff like that. So that part of it, the camaraderie and stuff, is really nice. Which is how we met. Same thing at a different show. So yeah, yeah, it's really good.
Those were really, really great points. I think you could almost look at bodybuilding as like it's a probability game, and at the end of the day, the odds are always going to be stacked against you. Even do if you were to do your absolute best throughout the prep, like basically perfect your physique at the time, depending on what the genetic pool is like, the other guys that are on stage on the same day that you are, um, there's so many different variables
Yeah.
as to um, you winning or losing, and it's just statistically improbable to win.
Hmm.
My mindset has been my mindset, because I've thought a lot about this too. I think a lot of competitors like wrestle with that concept, and I think what's given me a little bit of peace going into each prep from this point is because it'd be really easy to think about those things and then just not want to prep ever again, at least from my standpoint, because it's like, well, why bother? Like the odds are going to be so stacked against me. Like it's like, what's the point of it? But what has been helping me lately is to prep with the intention of winning. So like I'm training, I'm in my improvement season right now. I'm like getting close to the end of it. And then I'm gonna start my prep. And the prep is gonna be about doing my best, reaching my potential, and like doing it to win for sure. No doubt about it. Like I don't wanna, I'm not prepping to like get second place or
Yeah.
third place. I've got a lot of
Yeah.
second and thirds at this point. But it's to prep to win, but to be okay and be at peace with losing or not winning.
Hmm.
That's kind of what's helping me at this point. It's always like it's always tough to lose. I've lost far more times than I've won, that's for sure. But it's always I've always found that it's been an ongoing battle, and I think that's the case for a lot of competitors. That's for sure. Okay, so you did that show, and you ended up winning. There wasn't a lot of competitors there, but you still won. And then after that, what was the post-show period like?
Pretty rough because I went into it not really understanding the post show period. Like I did all the research I could into doing the prep properly, but none of it really prepared me for the aftermath. So like even on show day, once I went up on stage for the first time, and like no disrespect to my competitors, I knew I was going to win it. So I started eating backstage between the prejudging and the finals because I knew it wasn't going to be I like nothing crazy, but definitely
Yeah.
not following my guideline for that day. Like I was planning on eating another small carb up meal before the posing thing in the finals just to look my best again, but I was just so mentally drained from digging for so long that I just like, okay, I'm done, you know, I did it. I'm ready to get healthy again or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, so even starting on show day, I was just like, okay, I'm ready to go back to normal, if you will. And the next few weeks, if I had to guess, like I stayed away from the scale after for probably just for sanity's sake, because just knowing that it was gonna go up, I knew it would happen, but I just didn't want to see it. There's just something about ignorance is bliss in that moment. I probably gained 10 to 15 pounds in the first 2 weeks, mostly water retention, obviously not just fat. That'd be pretty intense to be able to do it that much, but I probably gained at least 5 or 10 pounds of fat though within the first 3 weeks, if I had to guess. Like it was pretty rapid, way quicker than I wanted. I was hoping to milk the post show period as an extended off season because that's how you should do it, is get back to like maybe 8 or 9, 10% body fat relatively quickly, and then tone it down to go into your slow calorie surplus and have the best bulk that you can to put on more muscle. Um, but yeah, that just did not work out so well. I definitely ate way more than I wanted to, consistently. Like every single day was just like cravings. What have I not eaten that, I haven't been allowed to have for the last however many weeks I did that prep for. So yeah, I gained the only positive thing that I can say is my homeostasis, like my set point, if you will, my body fat set point that I'm naturally comfortable at, and my hormones and all that stuff, stabilized really quickly. So even though I put on the weight fast, I never overshot, which is fairly rare, I think, at least for first time competitors, especially people who don't know how to do the post show period. So I got back to around 170, 175, and just completely like hunger went back to normal, and everything just kind of felt good after that. So I'm like, oh, I'm just like back to where I was 3 months ago, and now I'm okay to slow bulk for a shorter amount of time and go into a cut eventually. So I rapid gained too fast, but in the end, like I learned a lot from it, and I'm fortunate that I didn't overshoot it. I think there's a lot of cases of people that go heavier than they've ever been before because it's so hard to control yourself when you've been so deprived and your hormones are so out of whack.
Yeah.
But
I've
yeah,
I've I fall into that category for sure.
yeah, it happens. Yeah, like I my show was in December, and just from an energy standpoint and not feeling that weight around my ankles, it took until February. I
Yeah.
distinctly remember in my head in like mid-February where I was like, "Oh, I actually kind of want to train hard and I don't feel heavy anymore." And that's like, almost 3 months after. Like that's pretty crazy. Like you're not just signing up for the show, you're signing up for probably 3 to 6 months after. And that doesn't even like consider the psychological aspects of it too, which is a whole nother thing. Like being able to deal with the fact that you looked so lean and got this like artificial, like, I guess not artificial maybe, but just this not normal amount of attention from people for different reasons that is just going to go away now, because you're going to go from being that this lean person that you see yourself as to just like another regular person. Especially as a natural, you never are that big really, so you're just going from Superman to Clark Kent in a sense, which nobody wants, right? So that can be hard to deal with psychologically, but I'm fortunate in the sense that other people's opinions have not been of much value to me my whole life. I just do it for me, as selfish as it sounds, so I didn't struggle with that part of it too much.
Yeah, I think that it can be really common to gain back body fat rapidly after a show and then really grapple with everything that you or really struggle with everything that you just mentioned. So like the sudden lack of attention that you get after a prep where everyone's cheering you on because you're getting
Yeah.
so lean and you're getting ready for the stage. So it's like you all of a sudden you're not in the spotlight anymore. And then also too just the coming to terms with how not looking the same anymore more. You work for so many weeks and months to get leaner and leaner and more peeled and shredded the deeper you get, and then relatively quickly, you look vastly different. I know that's been the case for me. I've always gained more body weight than I had planned immediately following my shows every single time. But, did you find that that bothered you at all, or you were kind of at peace with the extra weight gain kind of
I
when
was
it
sad
happened?
to see the cool lines go away. Like, it's just like you look at your body every day, no matter what, and when you're in that state, it's like it's just you're not supposed to look like that. So enjoy that time while you're there because it should be very temporary from a health perspective. So I was purely at peace with the fact that like this is what a person is supposed to look like. This is not body dysmorphia anymore. This is just a human being that's supposed to exist 10% or more body fat as a male. Like it's just that's the way it is, and I prefer that look most of the time. I like unveiling what's underneath once in a while for the sake of like, oh, cool, this is what I could look like. But yeah, I definitely enjoy the 10 to 15% body fat look like much more, where you can actually look like you fill a t-shirt out and you have energy and your face isn't sunken in. Like there's just so much more positive that comes from being healthy than not, which is why like the competition side of it is tough and should be very, very temporary if you're willing to do that to yourself. It's not something I think you should even chase yearly, probably not even every 2 years. If you really want to make progress and keep yourself healthy long term, like for me at least, 3 years minimum probably between shows.
Yeah. Well, if you
Yeah.
think about it too, it's like, well, you do the show, you work for months towards getting on stage, and then if it takes like another 3 to 6 months to like just get back to a base level where you feel normal, training gets back to normal, then competing the next year would be really tough, right? Because then it's like basically you get to the point of just feeling normal and then you got to start prepping again already. So it's like hard to
Yep.
improve between seasons. I'm in the same I'm kind of in the same boat as you
Yeah.
where I think it seems to make the most sense from a health standpoint and from an improvement standpoint to take a little bit longer between competitions. When was your second season?
It was the show that we did. So I went 5 years between 2018 and 2023. So that one was, you said it, September 9th, I think.
I think
I
so.
actually I
It
actually
sticks in
forget
my
that.
head.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it was. So September 9th, 2023, so almost 2 years ago. Yeah.
Crazy. Well,
Yeah.
that's a good length off season, 5 years. So some time to
Yeah.
build some muscle in between. How did that prep go? And was it different than the first one?
Um I think more excited about it than the first one in some ways because I I'm a bit of a perfectionist, as probably all of us are in this weird natural bodybuilding world, because like we just want to be better in most aspects of life, but obviously in the sport that we choose to compete in. Um, And when I cut down for 2018, I realized how disproportionate my physique was, where I didn't really realize it without losing that body fat. I'm I hold my body fat in an interesting way. Most men hold it somewhat universally or more midsection, but I actually hold most of it in my legs. So when I dieted down, I was like, I have no legs left. All the fat's gone, and there was more fat on here than the rest of me. So I was like, oh, that needs to improve. So I spent most of the time after that just going hard trying to improve my weak points. So I was excited to see the progress that I made versus myself. obviously excited to go compete with other people and hopefully win and all that, but I really just wanted to compare myself to 5 years before and say, hey, look what can happen even 10 years into training. Because by the time I competed, I was already, yeah, about 10 or 11 years into training. So the 5 year period after that, the results should be much, much smaller than the last 10 years. So the fact that I was able to improve by a margin that I deemed positive, I was just really happy and excited to show that off really for myself, for my family, for my friends. So yeah, yeah.
Did you find it was easy to like manage things like the lethargy and the lack of energy the second time you did the prep?
It was harder because of life circumstances. I think um I competed the first time it was winter, so my show being in December, winters work-wise for me is a little bit easier. There's just less going on in the winter. There's not as many social activities, stuff like that. So I didn't have too much to worry about outside of the context of prep. But competing in September, I started prep, I think it was March, maybe I started. I started about 6 months out. Um, so prepping through summer just sucks, like for obvious reasons. Like you want to enjoy summer, you want to do stuff with friends, you want to not have to micromanage your food when you go to social gatherings. So it was harder from that standpoint, and work is busier for me as well during summer. So that part added more stress. Um, which yeah, I think I would say the second prep was harder overall. Um, mentally more challenging for sure.
Do you find that well, something that I find I think as being the most difficult part about prepping is the social element. So like going away for like let's say there's a long weekend and going and staying somewhere for a long weekend that's away from home and having to prep extra meals and be around extra food and that sort of thing or even just like going out for dinner sometimes. I've tried to like make a point of it for myself to like go pretty much no matter what, but I'll do things like I won't order and I'll wait until I get home, but I'll still go and like have like a Diet Coke or something like that. But I've always found that like I think it's really important to still be social during preps because relationships are important. Um, but I've found that that's been one of my biggest challenges, especially in the latter stages of preps, is holding myself accountable to still being social, but managing my meals and everything. And it's just been harder for me to do that. Do you find that that's something that's tough for you in your preps?
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of honestly the only thing that's hard in a way because like I'm the one choosing to eat a certain way, to train at a certain time. Like all those things are just my selfish decisions. So that's easy in a sense because once you write the plan down, you just have to follow it. But the variables in life come from like random family things, things with your significant others, your friends, all those things that you still have to maintain or at least do your best to show up in. So that's yeah, for sure. Like having your birthday where you can't eat cake, that sucked. But
I've been there.
yeah, yeah. Like my birthday's in August, so like this last prep, like yeah, no way. I'm bringing my chicken and my rice and whatever else. Like that's just the way it is.
It's like a protein pancake for dessert for your birthday instead of cake,
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
What do
Exactly.
you so what is your I'm curious, what is your approach during those social things when you're in prep? Like, is that what you just typically do? Is like you just make sure that you have all your meals prepped around those social gatherings and you just stick with it? Or how do you kind of mentally I don't want to just say get through it, but how do you mentally get through it?
Yeah, it's just having the plan set in front of you, and then the variables that get introduced in the middle of it don't really matter if you have the plan. So if I have to go out of town for a weekend, I know exactly what I'm eating every single day, so it's pretty easy to prep for it. Airbnbs being a thing now is nice because not being stuck to a hotel room that doesn't even have a hot plate or anything to cook on, at least you can get a place that is basically like home so you can have your meals the way you want. Travel with your spices, with your scale, with the necessities, with the things that you just kind of always use, and the rest is just fairly straightforward. I have no shame in bringing my meals to social gatherings and, hey, this is what I'm doing. Like, people that care enough about you will understand. So it doesn't really matter that you're standing out. I've never been much of a drinker, so that part of it has always been kind of easy for me. Like, not being the one friend that's not partaking in things like that has never been difficult for me, because I've always been set kind of with health habits and bodybuilding goals. So it's basically no different than my off season, if I'm being honest. In some ways, I'm just way more strict, obviously, during prep, but I often don't eat the same as most other people at social gatherings to begin with. For one, because I'm a picky eater, but two, for these goals, like, it's just like I'd rather eat a certain way. It just, I feel better, my energy levels are better, my training's better, I sleep better. It's harder for me to not be consistent than it is for me to be consistent.
Yeah. I can relate
Yeah.
to a lot of that, and I think it's helpful to know that, and it's helpful and interesting to know that, and I think that if anyone's listening that also finds the social element of preps, to be a big challenge, I think that's helpful for anyone to hear and just to have a little bit of relatability.
Yeah.
Um, how did that competition go? So that was the WMBF Ontario, September 9th, 2023. How'd the competition go?
Well, I met this guy, so pretty good. It
When
was
would
good. Yeah.
it was when we were waiting to get our tans, right? Was that when we first met? We were sitting there like an hour and a half behind?
Do you remember the first thing I said to you? I don't. It was just a brain fog fumble.
Yeah.
I was I was trying to say something along the lines of me enjoying your prep series, because obviously us doing the same show following your prep
I do
series was
remember that.
was nice, because
Yep,
I had somebody that relates to me doing the same damn thing.
yep.
So I was trying to verbalize that in the moment, but
I
I
do
just,
remember that.
I don't know what came out, but it was like, nice to meet you or something. I don't. Yeah.
I think we were all speaking like almost English. It's like old English, but it's almost English. It's like
Yeah.
a dialect that's
Yeah.
not
Every
quite
like three
understandable to the
words,
mainstream.
every 3 words, you're like thinking of food instead of the word.
Yeah, basically. At
Yeah.
least we could understand each other though.
Yeah.
The mainstream population might not have, but
Yeah.
anyway, sorry. Okay, so we met when we were getting waiting to get our tans, but how did the show go?
It went pretty good, like, from a show perspective. Like, I like how it was ran and how everything, like, flowed. Everything was on schedule, and, like, when you were expecting to go on stage, you actually went. So from a show standpoint, it was good. From a placement standpoint, nobody wants to not win. So getting third in my weight class was a huge disappointment. With that much effort going into anything, losing, no, no, thank you. But it is what it is, for the reasons that we kind of talked about earlier. Like, I can't really be mad at what I think five strangers decided, because at the end of the day, like, I'm so happy and proud of what I managed to put together. Like, I will forever have pictures of myself, as conceited as that is, like, in my gym, posted on the wall, just so proud that I achieved that at some point in my past, and hopefully even better maybe in the future. But yeah, just the fact that I was able to just, like, embarrass my 2018 version. Like, if I put those two people side by side, it would not be even close. Like, it's two different bodies almost at that point. So that was the ultimate goal. But winning and not winning, it was very disappointing, and it was hard. It was hard not to be mad, because you put so much effort into it that, like, you're not getting out of it what you want. So it's almost like that reward mechanism. It's like, why did I do all this? Why did I waste my time, and my effort, and sacrifice relationship with family and friends and all that, just for third place? So you could look at it in that way, and at first that was my knee jerk reaction in my, like, emotional not healthy state. But the more that I came out of the show and had time to process and talk with my wife and all that, like, I have no reason to not be proud, of what I did.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
super, super relatable to a lot of people, myself included. I've competed, not the same number of times as like Jeff Alberts and Alberto Nunez,
Yeah.
that's for sure, but
Yeah.
enough times that like I've definitely lost way more than I've won. And Yeah, I know that feeling, and it's really tough. What do you think helped you kind of grapple with it? Like, how did you kind of get through that low point, or the feeling of disappointment, or even feeling a little bit angry and frustrated after having put all of this time and energy and making all these sacrifices and not getting the placing that you were hoping for, you were aiming for? How did you get through that tough point?
Yeah, definitely the support system helped. Like after like stepping off stage for the last time and knowing that I got third, like just all my family and friends just smiling, nothing but smiles, happy to see me, to hug me, to like, you did it, like you did so good, all that stuff. And like, they mean it. They're the people who love you the most in your life. So they couldn't care less than you didn't win. They're just proud of you for what you did. So it makes you wonder, like, why would I be harder on myself when all these people that I trust and love are telling me these things. So really just focusing on my personal progress rather than how I look versus other people. And a lot of people might like the bodybuilding criteria isn't necessarily what the individual values about their own physique in terms of its appearance. Like I might like a certain physique that gets closer to last place than the person who won. From a pure aesthetic perspective, like we're all so different. Like there's certain guys that have never won the Mr. Olympia that I far prefer their physique over like the winners of history. So it really doesn't matter like that you didn't win, as long as you improved upon your previous self, you gave it your all, you had a goal, you actually did it, you followed through with it, you didn't quit, you didn't give up. So all those things, yeah, they matter a lot more than the piece of metal that's going to do nothing for the rest of your life for you, except to be a memento of how you felt that day rather than a thing that has any real value. So, and not to mention, there's such a wide pool of genetics. Like, you just have to look at a crowd of people to know that we're all so varied. I can go on Instagram at any moment and view 100 like actually natural athletes that would destroy me for the rest of my life on a stage. I would never stand a chance against these guys. There's no way my genetics would ever make me build enough muscle for the standard of bodybuilding to compete against these guys. And I know that logically. So if I show up expecting to win, but then one of these people happen to be on stage next to me, how can I not be mad that the better man, if you will, won? Like some people just look at weight and build muscle. You know what I mean? Like they just have better genetics. It just is what it is. Some people are much skinnier than me their whole life too and can't build as much as I can. So I can just really be thankful that I have what I have and have a physique that I'm personally super, super proud of.
Those are all really, really helpful points. It's so true. And you're right. Like there's the genetic pool now with natural bodybuilding. There's guys out there, the standard is so high. There's guys that have like muscle growing on muscle.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so like I find myself thinking similar things
Yeah,
frequently
I
enough
just
too.
I like to remind myself constantly that I used to be like an awkward, shy, 130-pound guy that just tried something new, and I would have never dreamt of getting this far. I My first goal was like 145 pounds. I thought once I got 15 pounds of muscle on my body, I would just be there. I'd be at the pinnacle of like my goal and just be happy for the rest of my life kind of thing. And then you go further, it snowballs, you keep trying, you work harder, you get smarter, and you just get to a place where like who cares about a stage? Like that's like a side project. Like I care about how good I feel every day, how much more I can do because my body works well and I'm stronger, I'm healthier, you know, all the things that matter the most in life. It's not the stage, that's for sure, not for me at least.
Yeah, not the stage and not giving the power to enjoy the work that you put in basically I mean, you're giving that power to the judges, and it is what it is as far as the placings go, but you don't have to give them the power to enjoy the process or to not enjoy the process or to enjoy the work that you put into your physique or the result of how your physique has turned out. That's actually something that Jeff Albert said to me. That helps me have to remind myself that a lot too. There's some other things that I think was really helpful that you mentioned, just being grateful and thankful with the progress that you have made, the muscle that you've built, regardless of what your genetics are, or because of the genetics you have, despite them not being favored on stage compared to somebody else's, but being thankful for the shape that you do have. I think there's a statistic that human beings that tend to be more thankful and more grateful in general tend to be overall happier. So I think that's something that we can probably apply to natural bodybuilding and building muscle and fitness in general is regardless of how we place or compare to other people, we can still be thankful and grateful for like the progress that we have made and the genetics that we do have. So yeah, I think that that's all super helpful. What so that was the end of that was 2023.
Yeah.
What have your goals been since then, and what have you been training consistently, and where have you wanted to go with your fitness or bodybuilding since that competition almost 2 years ago?
Yeah, I came out of it the same as my first show, like very unsure of basically the future and my competitive future. Um, it takes it consumes so much of your life to do this thing that when you come out of a show, I guess you could have the motivation to like go do it again to either win again or to win for the first time if you haven't. But my personal mindset coming out of a show is like I need to decompress for a long time. Like for a long time, like years is a long time. It just takes so much out of you and your relationships with people around you that I think it would be unhealthy to chase that dragon like every year or every couple years maybe even. So I came out of it like fully knowing like I'm probably not going to do this for a while. It could be years and it also could be never. Like I don't know if I'll ever compete again truthfully. I would like to think that I will because I'm going to make progress within the next 20 years of my life until my testosterone naturally starts to dip and it arguably you can still make a bit of progress even after that. Um, so I would like to put my physique, maybe not on a bodybuilding stage, but maybe just like a really, really hard cut or a photo shoot goal or like something just to see me at my pinnacle. I just want to know what I can do with my genetics in my lifetime, really dedicating my time to the sport. It's not so much about the stage for me, that was just kind of a byproduct of loving to train more than anything. So yeah, long story short, like I really don't know if I'll ever do it again. I probably will. It could be years. I really don't know. Until I have that drive, I will not attempt to do anything 90%. I got to put everything into it. So I really, really got to want it to try it again.
I completely get it, and I think that's really helpful for a lot of people to hear that have felt the same things and are kind of wondering that for themselves. And I like that idea too of like maybe like someday doing like a really serious cut or like a photo shoot or something like that, where that's a cool idea because at the end of the day, you can like push your limits and try to reach what your potential is at that period of time. But at the same time, you don't go on stage and compare yourself, whatever potential you've reached, you don't compare that to the people that are next to you. So maybe you get more joy in the process because of that. So no, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely get it. Cool.
Yeah,
Well, this has been awesome. I
super fun.
I'm really glad I got to know more about your background with fitness and with the preps that you did, why you started getting into natural bodybuilding and what the post-show seasons were like. And I think that all of it was super relatable and I think it's really helpful for a lot of people to get to hear your experience with everything. So,
Yeah.
Johnny, thank you.
Hey, you're very welcome. I'm super happy to share, spread the love, make people aware of bodybuilding and how hard it can be, and to prepare people mentally who maybe want to step into that water and maybe need to reconsider like the reasons why and how hard it might be and prioritize things properly because it's definitely not for the faint of heart. It's a tough process. And if ever you want to do this again sometime and talk more about nutrition or training or more specific things, I'd be happy to. Was a lot of fun. Thank you.
That would be great. I would love that. And
Yeah.
yeah, not to kind of go in circles, but all the points that you mentioned, like the points about the post show periods and like grappling with coming third instead of first after making so many sacrifices. I think those kind of things are really, really helpful for people to hear, because there's a lot of like glorification that goes around prepping and competing, that a lot of that stuff gets missed. And then when
Mhm.
people actually experience it for the first time, it's a big surprise, and it can be, I can imagine it would be really tough. Actually, I know it can be really tough because I felt it myself. So yeah, thanks for bringing thanks for sharing all of those experiences. I really, really think that that's valuable.
No problem.
But yeah,